From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. This is episode 587. I'm Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. I'm joined as always by my co-host Derek, Deep3 in the forum, and Deep3G and Deep384 on X. Derek, not long after we finished recording last week's episode, some news broke that was very relevant to one of the topics we discussed, namely EA Sports' return to the virtual hardwood. Naturally, we have some thoughts on that, so as always, over to you to tip us off.
Yeah, this show will be dedicated to discussing the return of EA Sports college basketball. There were plenty of rumors this year, Andrew, but it became an official announcement on June 30th when the official EA Sports Twitter handle tweeted, "Bring the madness, let's run it back, #CBB, college basketball," and it's in the game. Following the announcement, there has been plenty of excitement, but the details around the return have some people concerned, and I understand where they are coming from. But because of the gravity of this new development, I turned this topic into a community question. I asked the community, what is your excitement level, and what features would you like to see in the game? We received many responses, and we will get to those after we share the details around this return and our thoughts on it. So, Andrew, I had a feeling EA Sports was going to get back into the basketball gaming space. I had more belief than you over the last few years, and I understand why you had your doubts. However, my prediction was that they were going to be coming back on PS5 gen at some point. I did not think that it was going to be 2028, and that's what this announcement entails. It's the return is for 2028 at the earliest, and I even saw an article that said 2028 or 2029. When we get to 2028, it appears that we will be on PS6 gen at that point, at least according to PlayStation leadership. In fact, there was an announcement recently where they had stated that they were now focused on the development for PS6, even at this time. So that's a little concerning for me, right? I mean, that's 3 years from now. However, Mike Straw of Mike Straw Media pointed out that college football was announced 3 years before College Football 25 came out, and look how great that game came out, and look how well it was received. Look how well it was made. Look at the sales it generated. And now College Football 26 is in the works. It's being previewed. It's going to be a huge hit as well. So that worked out for them. But what were your thoughts when you initially heard this announcement? And what are your thoughts about a release date 3 years down the road?
Well, it was definitely surprising, sort of came out of nowhere. However, it didn't take everybody by surprise. Matt Brown of Extra Points obtained a memo from the Collegiate Licensing Company indicating that they were soliciting bids from video game developers for a new college basketball game. This was in late June, so there were some rumors out there. I wasn't aware of this, so it did certainly surprise me. It is a pleasant surprise, obviously. I have not been as optimistic as you said. I did say on last week's show that I thought that if EA were coming back with live or a college game, it was going to be on the next generation. I thought they would skip the current generation and just go to the next generation of consoles, especially with it being in the works, as you said. It seems to be in the timetable that we are going to be on PlayStation 6, Xbox, whatever, the 10th generation of consoles, basically. So it does line up with that. But it is a pleasant surprise. I am glad to see it. I am glad to hear that EA hasn't completely given up on basketball. The 3-year window does line up with the EA Sports College Football, as you said, and although it kind of tempers my excitement for the meantime, I mean, we're not really going to have anything to look forward to for at least a couple of years, I think, as far as previews and juicy news to sink our teeth into. But apart from that, I do think it is a good idea, a great idea, that they are taking their time with this game. You go back to the attempted comeback of NBA Live on the 8th generation, how we thought that when they cancelled NBA Elite 11, when they decided to forgo an NBA Live 12, when NBA Live 13 got cancelled and they said they needed extra time to work on the game, we thought, wow, they're going to have 4 years of working on this game, it's going to come back better than ever. As it turned out, they were constantly rebuilding the team, researching, scrapping what they'd built, basically starting over from scratch after Live 13 tested very poorly to the NBA Live Advisory Council. starting over from scratch with Live 14, rebuilding it for that next generation. And, well, we know what happened with NBA Live 14 as a result of that. So I do like that they are taking 3 years to develop this game, to develop all of the assets. And it does sound like this came together very recently, at the end of June, with putting in the bid and winning it. So it doesn't surprise me that they haven't got everything in place yet. I assume they've got some tech to work with, an engine and other assets, and probably been looking into this for a while, but at the same time, now development can go ahead because they actually do have the license from the sounds of things. So taking that 3 years, I think, is a very wise move. We've seen what happened when they tried to rebuild a basketball game in the space of just 1 year. So I understand the frustration some people have that, oh, it's not going to come out for 3 years, why get excited? But I do think it actually bodes well for the development of the game.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to point something out. The response to EA Sports announcing this return, bring the madness, let's run it back. That tweet has over 33 million views, and the response to it is incredibly positive. Remember on last week's show, and then, on many shows in the past where we discussed this topic, I had stated that if EA Sports was going to get back into the basketball gaming space, that there would be a lot of positive buzz. There would be a lot of excitement. There'd be a lot of people saying, thank you. Finally, we have some competition in the space. Finally, we're going to have another option. And, just like when the college football game was announced, you're looking at similar buzz for this college basketball game. And the people are super pumped about getting this option. And there was a lot of people that were saying, well, 2K should make the college basketball game. Or they had said, well, Madden has a poor reputation now. They don't want to see EA Sports getting into the college basketball space or back into the NBA space. All that's making new sports games, all of that, because Madden is so Madden bad, all of that stuff, right? And those comments, they couldn't have been further from the truth. And we talked about that many times on past episodes. People want options. People want great games, and they will support those games if they're marketed appropriately, if the games play well, if they have the features that people want, all of that. But there is one issue that people have been bringing up and they're a little bit concerned about, and this is also something that Matt Brown at Matt Brown EP pointed out. In the memo for EA Sports proposal, it states, from our first meetings, EA Sports was the most confident by a wide margin in terms of the viability of a comprehensive standalone college basketball game. It continues, EA Sports has committed to building a basketball experience from the ground up, just as they did with college football. Building a game of this scale is a significant investment, and to maximize this opportunity, EA Sports is requiring exclusive action simulation rights. And what that reads to me, Andrew, is that the proposal is that EA Sports would get exclusive rights to making a college basketball game, meaning that 2K or any other company wouldn't be able to step in and compete with them and create their own game and whatnot. And this does have some people concerned. Also, there's a lot of people out there, and we'll get into this in a little bit, that are like, 2K, stay away from our college basketball, right? You're going to screw it up. Yeah. Do not get into the college basketball space. And there are plenty of responses like that. And I'll point those out shortly. But yeah, does that concern you? It does concern me a little bit because, we do want options. I think that in the football space, Madden has been the only real viable option in the simulation football space, and they're the only ones with the NFL license, and 2K hasn't been able to get in and make a great football game with the NFL license, and another company hasn't been able to get in and do that. So does that concern you? It concerns me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal. We have criticized exclusive licenses, the monopolies they create. We don't want to see that happen with the NBA. We've talked about 2K having a virtual monopoly over the virtual hardwood. That's just by virtue of being the strongest game, the strongest title in the space, and outmuscling Live and outdoing Live, and Live just going away, giving up, nobody else kind of getting into the space. I am reminded of the situation with NBA Playgrounds, and actually by the time this comes out, this week's Monday Tip-Off will have already been posted where I talk about some of the pettiness of 2K's response to this news, because some of the responses, their quote tweet, "The campus has been quiet," and the statement, "We are the undisputed home of basketball gaming," kind of petulant, kind of petty. And I understand it, because obviously EA are trying to get this advantage with a possible exclusive license for a collegiate game, so I get it. But they have had a lot of influence in the space. It felt like Saber had to kind of bend the knee to 2K and insist, "Oh, we're not trying to compete with NBA Playgrounds. This is something completely different." And of course, it eventually led to the partnership of NBA 2K Playgrounds 2.
And then the death of the series.
Exactly, yes, absolutely. And to that point, 2K shouldn't be the gatekeepers of basketball gaming, or the exclusive, or the undisputed home of basketball gaming. There should be competition in the space. Now, having said that, EA trying to get an exclusive license for a college game is not exactly conducive to competition either. So it's kind of hypocritical, I admit. But instead of trying to get a foothold in the scene that 2K has really dominated for, well, close to 20 years now, really. Certainly the last couple of generations. So I certainly get the motivation for it. Obviously, there's not a lot of details about that at the moment. But 2K is obviously going to keep doing their thing with the NBA. EA, this is a great way for them to jump back into the basketball gaming space. So it does concern me. I don't love exclusive agreements because of the problems they cause with monopolies. And once again, Madden is the prime example here. But at the same time, I do want an alternative back in the space. So if this was the deal that the CLC were putting out there, if they said, much like the NFL, that should be noted that the NFL were the ones putting out the bid for the exclusive license. If Take-Two had been able to get that exclusive license, they would have jumped on that. They wouldn't be giving that up either, because that would have been that would have been a cash cow for them as well. So, we're talking about billion-dollar corporations either way here. So I don't shed tears for either of them. But yeah, although it does concern me and it's not ideal, I am happy that EA is jumping back into the space.
So here are a few responses to that memo under Matt Brown's tweet. People are saying, "We need competition between 2K and EA. Keep the simulation license open for years to come." Max on Unlimited states, "Not again." Oh, Baywen states, "Yeah, the same deal they have with the NFL." Eli James says, "Exclusive license. F off EA with that crap. What are you all afraid of? Competition is good in gaming, because then you don't get the stale product that has been Madden for almost a decade. Haven't bought the game since 19. J Mac says, "This isn't a good thing for anyone wondering." Head of CTP says, "This is awful, not the news I wanted to hear. EA can't take the competition." College Football Fan 445 says, "Mobile game or arcade slop?" Great. Jagnol says, "EA corporate deserves to go straight to hell." C. Marsh says, "Maybe if they get the college basketball game right, they can bring NBA Live back." And yeah, that's obviously a hope here as well, because then they'll have the bones. They'll have the base, Andrew. Wiregrass Barner states, "And EA should be denied." And there's just a bunch of responses like that. So yeah, again, that exclusive piece is concerning people quite a bit. I also want to point out that The Athletic wrote about this announcement, and I think there are some points worth mentioning. They stated, "The CLC, which handles branding licenses for the vast majority of schools, put out its request for proposal to game developers in November 2024 following the success of College Football 25. EA Sports was the only one to confirm it would include all Division I men's and women's teams that opted in, which would total 730 teams, as well as NIL money for players on each team in a standalone simulation game. Schools have until July 18th to approve being in the game," the source said. The plan would be similar to football, running NIL through one-team partners, and EA would explore similar features to the college football game, like Dynasty Mode, Team Builder, Road to Glory, and Ultimate Team. The 6-year proposal includes at least 3 games, beginning in 2028. It could produce 6 games in that time. But if it did not produce a game in a given year, teams and rosters would be updated in a downloadable patch. Similar to college football, schools will be allocated more royalties based on how often their team is used. So, some important details in there. Apparently, it's a 6-year proposal. Like they stated, if a game wasn't released for a specific year, so let's say they released College Basketball 2028, and that's going to be the name probably. It wouldn't be NCAA basketball. It'd be like their college football series.
Exactly,
It'd be like,
yeah.
But it would be like College Basketball 2028, College Basketball 2029, and then if they didn't release like an official new college basketball 2030, they could do a patch which updates the players, rosters, etc. for college basketball 2029. But yeah, that's a lot of detail. We have the details. They are officially coming back. It sounds like, the women's game could be prominent as well in the new college basketball game, which I do think is cool, right? My brothers and I have been playing the WNBA a lot. It'd be nice to have the women's game get more light shined on it. I do think that they deserve that. So yeah, those are more details.
Yeah, and I do get the skepticism when it comes to EA. They have had greed in their games. They've acquired other studios and shut them down. The games haven't lived up to expectations. We could do a whole show about NBA Live's troubles over the years, and indeed we have done whole shows about NBA Live's struggles over the years. I will say to the EA can go straight to hell people, I understand, of course, but if you think that 2K would do a better job, or if they're a more trustworthy company or a friendlier company, I think that is a very naive thing to believe. I don't think you can necessarily trust 2K any more than you can EA. I mean, NBA 2K has had a much higher level of quality consistently through the years, but personally I haven't been very impressed with 2K on this generation, haven't enjoyed the games very much. I feel there's been some stagnation, so I don't think they necessarily do a better job with the college game. Again, not ideal to have an exclusive license, but if this is what the CLC is going for, much like the NFL back in the day, then it would certainly behoove EA to throw their hat into the ring and try and get that exclusive license, especially with the success they've had with college football. So I don't blame EA for taking them up on the offer, considering how successful that's been. And again, if 2K had the opportunity to monopolize the space with NFL back in the day, with the NBA now, as I said, I feel they've kind of tried to do that when they were concerned, quote-unquote, about Sabre Interactive and NBA Playgrounds back in 2017. So I think they are trying to throw their muscle around anyway. So yeah, I don't think the Take-Two are the good guys and EA are the bad guys here. We're talking about billion-dollar corporations either way. Again, I'm just glad that we're getting competition again in the space.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to point out there has been some really good coverage related to this announcement, and one of the people covering it, trying to get out relevant information, creating YouTube videos, etc., is Soft Drink TV. So shout out to him. Always great content. I know that Kid Cash is a big fan of his content. I also want to point out that the relationships that we talked about on prior shows, that they created with the college football series, and the fact that College Football 25 is one of the best selling sports games of all time. That just bodes so well for this return. And, we talked about having that strong base for a return of NBA Live. 2K Sports doesn't have an exclusive license for NBA basketball video games. EA Sports can get back in there when they want. They can create an NBA game in the future. And, we can only hope that College Basketball 28 comes out. It's a smashing hit. It's a great hit, just like College Football 25. People are loving, the way it's marketed, the way it's previewed. They pick it up and they get a great first impression. They love the gameplay. They're showing off the videos on social media. It's blowing up on YouTube. It's blowing up on Twitter. Maybe there's a new social media platform at that time and it's blowing up on there. This is 3 years in the future. But that could just be that strong base for a return of NBA Live. And I would love competition in the NBA basketball space. So fingers crossed there.
Definitely. And yeah, shout out to Soft Drink TV for the great content, also for the follow back on X as well. And one way that EA could dip its toes back into the NBA scene, if this doesn't interfere with the CLC and the agreements there, is if they bring back the classic NCAA teams that have some NBA alumni. They did that the wrong way in NCAA basketball 08 and 09. They didn't get the rights. They just put in the roster players that look suspiciously like Ed O'Bannon and other players, and of course that led to the lawsuit and the eventual split with the NCAA. But if they were able to incorporate some of those classic teams, they might be able to get some NBA legends into the game as bonus content. And bonus content never goes astray, Derek.
No, and you know how I feel about the legends. You know how I feel about the retro content. I absolutely love it. I wanted to point something out about the whole, 2K should be making the college basketball game, not EA. There were some tweets flying about that, and I wanted to read the responses, the most popular responses to those tweets. So Young Sal states 2K should be making the college basketball game. And just to let people know that, when somebody tweets this, it can grow in popularity fast. It can get a ton of views. It doesn't matter how small the account is. This person has about 600 followers, but this tweet has 6.7 million views because it hit the algorithm, Andrew. But the responses for this was from Wheat, and this has 1,200 likes. He states, "No, the F they shouldn't. Keep their hands off the grail of all basketball, and that would be college." Outlier Sports, this tweet has 623 likes. 2K having no competition has been the worst thing to happen to the game. Any game that doesn't feel like 2K would be welcomed. He has that fatigue, Andrew, that we talked about, that you have. You have 2K fatigue.
Absolutely.
On this gen, and you're craving that competition like so many other people. You want options. Dre at Ho Hate Dre states, "Hell nah, nobody cares for a 2K game anymore. Everyone wants a NBA Live because it was the only game that was competitive with 2K. At Young Leak says, I'm going to reword this, but he states, "Free yourselves from the shackles of 2K. Gav Mills states, EA is bad, but 2K is 1,000 times worse. Game is truly awful. 51 likes for that. Jiffy made me do it says, heavens no. The next response, this person just has emojis as their handle. It says, I play 2K every day, and I can say this crap is now the absolute worst sports video game ever. And Garov states, no, they effing should not. They can't even make a good NBA game anymore. What gives you confidence that they won't F up college basketball? So there's plenty more responses, but that kind of gives you an idea. There's definitely 2K fatigue out there. People want competition. Not everybody is hating EA Sports. People love what they've done with the college football game. So I think people need to chill, to be honest with you, with, the whole, I wish 2K made the new college basketball game. I'm actually glad that it's EA getting in here.
Oh, absolutely. And we said in a previous show that we'd prefer EA to be the ones to come back into the space and take over the college game, that it would be a good way for them to get back into the game without competing with 2K directly, not having to replicate what they're doing with NBA 2K, being an alternative, being something different, that it would be a really good move for them, and it would be good for gamers as well. And like I said, I understand people not trusting EA. I understand that people do enjoy 2K as it is at the moment and would like to have the same gameplay just with the college game. I understand that. I've also seen a lot of people say that they have fond memories of College Hoops 2K8 in particular, but many years have gone by since College Hoops 2K8. That is not the same 2K we have today. We've seen them become greedier. We've seen them kind of stagnate. We are seeing a lot of 2K fatigue. So say Take-Two got this bid, say they got the college license, I don't think we'd see College Hoops 2K8 today. I think we would see some of the worst of NBA 2K in the new College Hoops. Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, NBA-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
Another notable response, and I think you'll probably agree with this, and I do think that it will be personal for Scott O'Gallagher if he does work on the game, not on a bad level, but like on a competitive level. Wadgeplug at Badgeplug stated, it's no coincidence that Scott O'Gallagher gave huge contributions to College Football 25 and it became the best-selling sports video game of all time in the U.S. He was a developer at 2K, but left to join back EA, and he states this game will be personal. And yeah, I hope he has his hands in on this game, going by his background, going by, his resume as a basketball player, right? Played overseas. From everything I read, he was a great basketball player. He knows the game. That's somebody that I would want working, closely
Definitely
on a new basketball video game. And, he's going to want to compete, right, with 2K. I'm sure that he is incredibly proud at, what was done with College Football 25, the reception, how the game played, the features, how people just, absolutely loved that game. So yeah, I'm with you there. Hopefully Scott's in on the development, and that will help.
Agreed, and I can't remember his exact title. I think it's something like creative director. But if he does have a hand in the vision of these games, and he is contributing heavily to the vision of these games and directing these games, then I think that bodes well. You look at how Live struggled when it was handed off to somebody with a background in hockey and someone with a background in the NFL games, the Madden games. You need that basketball knowledge, that passion for basketball heading up these projects. So yeah, I definitely agree that Scott seems to be the guy for the job. Great college career, many years as a pro, played here in Australia briefly, actually. So yeah, I imagine he's going to have a hand in the game, and so much the better for it.
So before we get to the community's responses to this announcement, my final thoughts on it are I'm just really happy that there's going to be competition in the basketball gaming space. And hopefully this does pave the way for the return of NBA Live, because the NBA is still where my heart is, right? That's if I had to choose, I would, say, bring back NBA Live. But this is a great start. And I think that, with the success of College Football 25 and College Football 26 is also going to be a massive success. This gives EA the momentum, the relationships, the resources, the tools and whatnot to make a great college basketball game. So I'm optimistic that this game, could be a bestseller right out of the gate, just like College Football 25, and that it could show incredibly well and play incredibly well on its first release. And I think that it's very important, as we talked about, the marketing efforts for NBA Live for the most part on PS4 gen were piss poor, right? I think they need to do what they did with College Football 25 and just market the hell out of this game and give the people what they want and have people drooling over the release. And so hopefully that is the case. But do I have concerns about the exclusive license piece? I do. Yeah, because I do think that there should be competition in any space. And I don't think that exclusive rights are good for gaming and sports gaming in general and whatnot. So, maybe we find out that that's not the case. Maybe we find out that 2K or another company can still come in and try to compete with EA in the college basketball gaming space. But at the end of the day, at least it's going to be another 5-on-5 basketball option that people are going to be able to sink their teeth into. As far as the release date in 2028, it makes sense for the development time, all of that stuff. Like we stated, more than likely we will be on new consoles that year. So that concerns me a little bit because we're working with new hardware, right? And whatnot. We've seen games be super clunky with their first release on that new hardware. But yeah, I think they know what they're doing this time. And hopefully College Football 25 success shows that this is going to be an awesome thing. So those are my final thoughts. What about you?
No, I'm definitely with you on all those points. As I said, it's not ideal that it sounds like there may be an exclusive agreement. It might be an exclusive agreement as far as having a standalone game. 2K might be able to include some college content as part of My Career, or they might be able to have some all-time college teams, some kind of collegiate content, just not a standalone game. That might be the terms of the exclusive agreement, if indeed there is one. Again, the development time seems like a wise choice considering how much they struggled to get NBA Live rebuilt in just the space of one development cycle. We thought it was going to be 4 years. It turned out not to be the case, and we saw the result of that. So yeah, I do like the fact that they are taking their time. It's difficult to get too pumped up this far out, but I am certainly happy about the news, as I said. Them working with new hardware is a concern, but at the same time, modern consoles are more like PCs in their architecture, so it's not like designing for consoles back in the day where they were running into all kinds of different hardware configurations and really struggling with certain ports. So hopefully that won't be an issue moving forward. I too would prefer an NBA game, ultimately. I've always been a bigger NBA fan than college basketball fan. I am hoping that this does pave the way back for NBA Live. You know me, Derek. I miss the days of having competition in the space, alternatives. It's why I love retro gaming. It's why you love retro gaming. Going back and looking at the oddities, the great games, the bad games, the mediocre games of the past, but they all had something to contribute to the space. And some people even like the mediocre games a bit more than the best game because of some quirk, or they like the sim arcade hybrid style of certain games more than the sim style of NBA Live and NBA 2K, or the arcade style of NBA Jam and NBA Street. We need competition, we need alternatives in the space. This is what we're getting in 3 years' time or possibly 4 years' time. So yeah, it's hard to get too excited in the short term, but it still is exciting news at the end of the day. We're obviously going to keep our eyes and ears open for any news. There might not be a lot of it at this point in time, but yeah, it is very promising that EA is coming back into the space, and I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, well, you remember the tweet I referenced earlier from Young Sao. It stated, 2K should be making the college basketball game. NBA 2K actually quote tweeted that, and this is how that tweet gained traction. Remember, I said that can happen fast. And this is from the official NBA 2K handle. They stated, the campus has been quiet for too long. And
smug face, yeah, with the smug face emoji.
Yeah, they couldn't let EA Sports have that moment there. Jumped right in, and that got 9.2 million views. And I just want to read a couple of responses before we get to the community response to my community question, Andrew. So Charlie states, this is the number one response, 36K likes, states, you going to make us pay VC for the damn tuition fees. Then Steph Ant states, walk with me, EA is better than 2K, 6.7K likes. Royals, please win. I speak for everyone when I say we want EA to make this game. 5.2K likes. Bull World states, don't even think about it. You're going to ruin it. 2.9K likes. Nightshade states, when the cup of noodles costs $9.99 in VC. King Firebreak states, 200K VC per semester or you get kicked out. 1.5K likes. Modern Warzone says, kind of ass. You waited until a competitor arose to do this. To be honest, 1.2K likes. Money Mosh states, please do us all a favor and walk away from the sport of basketball. 1.3K likes. Double H says, hopefully this isn't just an engagement tweet. Would like to see both an EA and 2K version of college basketball.
There you go.
Double H doesn't like that exclusive licensing. Fair response. Brad states, VC about to be $200 for your my player to reach 85 as a freshman. 870.
Probably.
3 likes. So just to let everybody know, and that's on there's a lot of 2K fatigue out there, and people are absolutely sick of the microtransactions and how they've taken over the game and how, 2K is milking the consumer for every cent that they have with these NBA 2K games and whatnot. So, and 2K wouldn't let EA Sports have their moment. But, all the top tweets are basically like, keep your hands off of college basketball. So honestly, it was kind of nice to see because I do think that 2K does need to change their ways. I think they've become incredibly predatory with the NBA 2K series, and I think gamers deserve better. And I do think that, while I have enjoyed NBA 2K25 the most on PS5 gen out of the 2Ks they've released, I do think that the game has kind of gotten a bit stale. And I feel like the atmosphere a lot of times with the game is dead and the excitement isn't really there. And I'd love for them to step up their game from a gameplay perspective, atmosphere perspective, and whatnot. So, yeah, I like the fact that they're getting a lot of pushback on tweets like this.
Yeah, like I said, it was a very petulant tweet. Once again, you can check out my article, this week's Monday Tip-Off, about the pettiness of 2K, the history of the pettiness of 2K, and how that really came to mind when I saw that post on X, how I felt that they were trying to steal EA's thunder. And again, no tears for a billion-dollar corporation in EA Sports, but it was kind of tacky that they did that. So yeah, I talked more about that in this week's Monday Tip-Off. But it was nice to see people pushing back on that, calling them out for trying to get attention, steal EA's thunder on this, and saying, let them do it, or we want to see both of you do it, not just you. But basically, people do want to see competition. There is 2K fatigue. And once again, Derek, all this talk we've been hearing for years about nobody wants EA to come back, no one wants Live to come back, or their college series to come back. Absolutely false. We can see people want that competition, they want alternatives in the space, and we certainly agree with that.
I mean, there were plenty of rumblings before EA's return to college football, where it was like, we don't want EA Sports. We want it to be, the 2K to create it, because NFL 2K5 was, such an amazing game, all of that. And then, they came back and, the response to the gameplay on College Football 25 was just unbelievably positive on social media, etc. And the game is one of the best-selling sports games of all time, and there's super excitement for the new release, College Football 26. So, yeah, that's proof in the pudding right there. So let's get to the community responses, Andrew. We did receive quite a few. I stated basketball gamers with the announcement that EA Sports College Basketball will be returning in 2028. We at the NLSC want to know, what is your excitement level on a scale of 1 to 10, and what features would you like to see in the game? So we're going to start with Twitter here. Stildo33, also one kidney Kenny on Twitter, states, holy crap, this is amazing news. Why are they waiting so long, though? They've already had 15 years. Just make it amazing. That's all we ask. And, he's talking about that 3-year gap from now until the release. Royce at Royce Brink 14 states, I would say an 8. That's his excitement level. For features, he states, classic teams and all-time teams for both men and women, season mode, tournament mode, and career mode. Tournament mode, where the gamer can put in 64 or 68 teams of their choice of branded broadcasting, ESPN, Turner, CBS, and any of the conference networks. And I just want to point out that I saw some of those features in Madden. It looks like they're doing like a Sunday, broadcast option, a Thursday broadcast option, stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure if it's like different networks. It might be, but they're doing a bunch of different broadcast options in the new Madden, and Madden, of course, made by EA. So his request here for that feature is not out of the realm of possibility. Part 2, he states, customizable and downloadable rosters from the community. Gameplay like the 08 and 09 games are like Live 10, not like Live 19. Career mode would include the ability to play as historic player and play out their career, or add to it like Walton, Kareem, or his airness. That would be a really cool feature. Doubt it would be in there, but would love it. Part 3 states Maravich, to go on to his previous statement. And he says, and women stars like Cheryl Miller, Caitlin Clark, Rebecca Lobo, and many more. Maybe during the season and tournament, recap shows with highlights and or scores like those on the networks and during the tournament itself. Also, the tournament mode would include the ability to put in classic and all-time teams too. A lot of great suggestions there. I love the different broadcast options, Andrew. I think that would be a hit with a lot of gamers. And just, he wants them to pay tribute to women's and men's basketball of the past. And, he loves his retro content, loves his classic college basketball and classic NBA. And I think those are some great suggestions.
Absolutely. And as we always say, gameplay is paramount, and this is no exception. It needs to impress on the virtual hardwood. But those bells and whistles are so important. Getting authentic broadcast presentation, adding some extra content as far as legends, retro jerseys, retro courts, etc., having some kind of challenge mode, having a customizable tournament, having as many teams as possible. It's vital to have that much content as well as great gameplay if you want to have a game that really impresses, especially in 2025, or in this case 2028. You can't have a bare-bones game as a AAA release.
NBA Live BR states, simply ginormic as it relates to his excitement level for a new college basketball game made by EA. Chosen One at King J Mace states his excitement level is a 10 for sure. He states, I want a good career mode without heavy microtransactions, don't we all? Trophy room for each school, hopefully either multiple presentations or a branded one, like when we had CBS. Like, how great was that back with, the old NCAA basketball games where they had the CBS option and the ESPN option? Very cool. And then he states, wishful thinking, but he would like classic teams too. And you and I love the classic teams in NCAA basketball 09, right? We put those on the floor often. So yeah, I would love to see classic college teams.
Whatever they do need to add a little something extra. There's obviously going to be a lot of excitement with it coming back, and if it's a great game on the court, then that is paramount, as I said. But you do still need to have some bells and whistles. You need to have that authentic presentation. You need a deep franchise mode or campaign mode of some kind, the tournament, obviously. And yeah, if you can squeeze in some retro content, that's definitely going to please people.
T. Gentry at Bucky T states 10. He said it's the most excited he's been for a basketball video game in a very long time. And he goes on to say, hoping for a deep dynasty mode, online co-op, head-to-head seasons, loud crowds, college-like atmosphere, And then he states, side note, excited to see these courts and player model graphics for these EA hoop titles, especially with it being on the new gen of consoles, right? More than likely, this game will be released on PS6 gen. That is my guess. So yeah, hopefully it's super eye popping. But yeah, about the atmosphere, I mean, they knocked that out of the park. We've talked about that before on like NCAA Basketball 10 and whatnot. I don't think that they're going to come up short in that area. I think that's just such a big part of college basketball and college sports lore in general. So I'm expecting the atmosphere to rock in the new college basketball games.
Yeah, they definitely got it right in those old games. And I'll also say that for all the ways that NBA Live struggled on the 8th generation consoles, they actually did a pretty good job of presentation, bringing the NBA on ESPN broadcast, authentic presentation to the virtual hardwood. So I think they can do it.
Yeah, it's better in my opinion. In fact, I actually preferred listening to Breen and Van Gundy over the Harlan crew on the 2K series. I do think that they did a great job making it sound super authentic and bringing that excitement. Was not a fan of Jay Williams. I think that was a major setback for NBA Live 19. Steven at the Live King states, definitely excited. If they put all the effort in that they're doing with college football, life will be great again. Just want to see a game with no shortcuts. EA has no choice but to invest heavily this time. Yeah, I agree. I think their backs are against the wall in the basketball gaming space. I think that they need to come out strong right out of the gate, just like they did with the college football series, in order to get that trust back, in order to get that market share right away, in order to not have any lapses in momentum. Roger Ward, Live 01 Legend states, it's exciting to have a new virtual hardwood experience. We can actually have full names on the default rosters this time. He states that he gives it an 8 overall for excitement and says, I'm sure the game modes will be a money grab. So as long as offline modes are fun, I'll be happy. And yeah, I'm expecting microtransactions to be in this game, right? As are you, to some degree. We're expecting some things to be behind some sort of paywall, or at least, things, there'd be pressure on the consumer, and that is unfortunate. Hopefully it's not as bad as what 2K has done recently with the NBA 2K series, and hopefully the game is loaded with fun, accessible offline content.
Definitely. I don't expect EA to be a charity here. They certainly have had their greedy moments over the years. Not so much in NBA Live, simply because it wasn't selling as well as they needed it to really push the envelope with microtransactions, let's be honest. But I do expect them to have some kind of paywalled content, maybe season passes. Ultimate Team is most likely going to be in the game. There'll definitely be microtransactions in that, so it's going to be there. But yeah, as long as they do have that robust offline content, a franchise mode or dynasty mode, and a tournament mode, and possibly retro content that's not going to go away when the servers get shut down, then yeah, that's what's important.
That's so Rel at _Relhouse states an 8. And then he says, for me, gameplay, mechanics, physics, and control. He states online, rec, street, college gyms to hoop at with 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 5v5 with full practice. He also states college school clothing, swag, shoes, jewelry, hats, leg, arm, sleeve attire, tattoos, and hairstyles. And goes on to state, bring back court battles, make it PvP. Court battles, saw a lot of footage on that. I think people did like court battles. They liked the way overall that it was set up. Would be kind of cool to see that return in a college basketball game. Andrew at Andrew the X states, not as excited as I should be given I bought a PS3 just to play region-free college hoops games, college hoops 2K7 and 2K8. He did state, it's great, though. The more quality b-ball games and options for fans will improve the b-ball gaming space for everyone. And he states, hopefully Scott O'Gallagher is involved in developing the game. Joystick Jocks states, they will have a couple of years before release, so I hope we see gameplay. He's all about the gameplay, just like we are, right? If the on-court product doesn't feel good, Andrew, we're not going to want to play it. So it doesn't matter how deep the game is, the gameplay just has to be awesome. He continues, use the first release like College Football 25 was and build off of that. He states, nailing the college atmosphere, which I am sure they will do, and all the other necessities can come later. But yeah, Andrew, that gameplay, so important.
Yeah, like I said, you do need the bells and whistles to keep people hooked, but if the gameplay doesn't impress, it doesn't really matter. I was recently playing ESPN NBA Tonight ahead of producing a retrospective of Way Back Wednesday. Will be out sometime in the future. And that game, as you know, Derek, has some really great ESPN presentation, some really nifty features in the creator player and edit player, but the gameplay is terrible, quite frankly. It is one of the worst games that I have played. It's interesting, it has its moments, but it makes NBA Live 2001 look really good. And my apologies to Live 01 Legends. I do like Live 2001. It did have a mixed reception back in the day, of course, and it does have some issues, which they have also pointed out over the years as well. But the point is that for all of the impressive presentation in that game, even for the time, the gameplay wasn't good. So yeah, even though the bells and whistles are important and the depth of modes is vital as well, if the gameplay isn't up to scratch, it doesn't matter.
Jay at J World 3 states, my excitement level would be a 10, but 2028 will be on PS6 and whatever Xbox will be called. So he doesn't like that 3-year gap. Chris states 7, so 7 out of 10 for his excitement level, and then goes on to say, Online Dynasty, if it doesn't have that, it's a major uphill fight, if not dead on arrival. Gameplay is going to have to be vastly deeper and better than any EA Sports hoop title has ever been. And lastly, he states the details. They won't be able to get away with 75% plus generic courts uniforms as in the past. Yeah, I'm expecting this game to, blow it out of the water as it relates to art and accuracy as far as whatever they can get their hands on, whatever they can license, whatever they're allowed to put in the game. I think that they will go all out with it. That is my opinion. Kind of like what they did with college football 25. I think they know they need to have a home run right out of the gate.
Agreed, and if they didn't care about quality, I think they would have just been pumping out subpar NBA Live games the past few years. They would have kept the license and kept releasing those games. The fact that they bided their time, the fact that they put in the bid, the fact that they took the time with EA Sports College Football, came back so successfully with that, it sounds like they're trying to put out the best game possible, which is what we want. We want value for money. We want a quality product. We only have the past to go by, which again is why people are skeptical. It's why they look back at games like College Hoops 2K8 and say, I'd rather 2K make this game. But looking at recent history, it does seem like they're committed to making a better game, so fingers crossed.
Moving over to Discord, Wiscard Rush states, my excitement level is at a 7.5. I'm relieved to see EA making a return to basketball gaming in a way we have been talking about for years. Some features I would like to see are multiple broadcasting packages. That's a common one, Andrew. I love it. I love it that people are, asking for this. And it looks like I stated, they're doing that with the newest Madden. He continues, real life coaches and players, the return of classic teams, especially college teams that we missed from NCAA 10 to now, a deep dynasty mode with AAU games in the off season, and a robust team builder. Pep states, by the way, if it's going to be released in 2028, then it would be most likely on PS6 and whatever Microsoft has in the plans. That's what many people have pointed out. And it does concern some people, but hopefully it's just a great game when it does come out. QB1120 states, LOL, they're going to be releasing PS5 games until the end of the decade if this generation was any indicator. He stated, I'm excited, though, if they're able to revitalize the sports game market with something new, fresh and good like they did with football, I'd be down to check it out. I miss playing fun basketball games. I got NBA 2K25 for free and still haven't touched it yet. And yeah, you can kind of speak to that, Andrew. You're not really picking up 2K25 much at all.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not because I think it is completely awful, and I don't think that 2K21 through 2K24 have been completely awful games. I've played completely awful NBA games, basketball video games before, and they are not completely awful, but they just don't capture my imagination. They just leave me cold, and that's why I am excited about EA throwing their hat back into the ring. It's an alternative. It's a different style. Yes, they have struggled in the past, but they have made some great games, some really fun games over the years. So I want something fresh. I want something different.
So, Andrew, I do believe that we received responses on Facebook.
Yes, Carlos wrote us a very thoughtful response. I will summarize it a little here. He says his excitement was a 7, college basketball coming back 10 plus, but EA having it and trying to monopolize it like they did Madden equals 0 for me. Mentions coming up in EA, as so many of us did in the 90s, was a late switch to 2K with 2K11. Mentions that Live has just been a subpar product and effort compared to 2K and just doesn't trust them. One factor that gives him hope is that Scott O'Gallagher and some of the other developers went back to EA, bummed that we won't see things like eras in a college basketball title like we would likely get at some point if 2K was making the game, not to mention basic things we take for granted in regards to detail in the NBA 2K series. But he does say that he's excited that there's another competitor in the basketball genre to help 2K from resting on their laurels. As far as features, mentions heavy investment into realistic gameplay, says that they need to compete with pro play, and unless they have technology that can compete with 2Play, that is basically an L at this point, an L waiting to happen. Talks about having playable high school, junior college, Division 2, etc., and also mentions a lot of immersive features, presentation, college bands, etc. Dickie V, of course, previously involved with the NCAA basketball and NCAA March Madness series by EA. Also, he has some kind comments about the show, and we thank you very much for those. Yeah, I understand not being as excited about EA coming back, especially if you are enjoying what 2K is doing.
Yeah, and let's be honest. He has a point, and it could be a flop, right? We don't know. I mean, we saw the way NBA Live 14 came back when it was released.
Sure.
Just absolute piss poor effort.
Yeah, definitely.
It was not well received at all. It was the beginning of another death of the series in reality. And then they made some positive improvements with Live 15 and Live 16 and whatnot. And I know that you really enjoyed Live 18, but the way they started off on PS4 gen just set them back again even more. So yeah, you know what? I don't blame anybody for being concerned or not expecting the best, etc. So hopefully I'm right and thinking that they're going to knock it out of the park the first year like they did with the college football series. So let's hope for that.
And Jared has similar sentiments, says, if it was anyone other than EA, I'd be hyped, but the only reason EA's games sell is the license on them. They don't put any effort into their current crop of games, and it shows in how much they lost last year. I'll stick with my NBA Showdown college stuff. And yeah, once again, that is fair. It is worth noting that college football did do pretty well, did impress, but there is a long history of EA not impressing with their games, especially their basketball games, so I totally get the skepticism. I totally get wishing that 2K were making it instead if you do enjoy the current 2K gameplay, but yeah, I'm just excited for something fresh. I
get Madden every year, and I disagree as it relates to updates and improvements and innovation and whatnot. I actually thought Madden 25 was a decent jump over Madden 24 from a gameplay perspective. I thought the game played quite a bit smoother. The new tackling animations, all of that stuff. I thought that overall it was a better product. I'm not really a big fan of blanket statements like, they don't add anything or they don't improve anything, because obviously there are a lot of additions to most any sports gaming release, whether it be related to animations, adding new animations, improving existing ones, things related to details in the art, all of that stuff, modes, upgrades to things that are happening in like Ultimate Team, etc. So like there were definitely some improvements in Madden 25. I also want to point out that, we have our critiques of the NBA 2K series, and you really don't have any desire to put on NBA 2K25 on a day-to-day basis, but you'll admit on the podcast, Pro Play is an addition, right? The full integration of Pro Play, that is a new feature, that is a new addition, that added a lot of new animations to the game, and it added some authenticity to the game that a lot of people are liking. So even though you're not a fan, you're not going to say, the NBA 2K series, they're completely stale, they haven't improved at all, they're not adding new features. They are adding stuff, but the stuff that they're adding and the improvements that they are making or say that they are making, they're not getting you. Right. The overall gameplay package doesn't get you, and it makes you not want to put that game on. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Super, thoughtful response though. And I definitely agree that once again, it's concerning, especially with, their track record with basketball games since the mid 2000s. Hopefully they don't come out piss poor like they have several times in the past.
Definitely, and I should clarify that when I say that 2K has stagnated, I don't mean that they're not doing any work on it or they haven't added new features. Pro Play is a big one. My NBA Eras is a huge one as well, obviously. It just feels like the gameplay is a bit stale. It isn't grabbing me, and that is my own 2K fatigue, but to me they haven't really captured the essence of basketball that I enjoy.
Right, but I also want to point out that in the sense of steps back, that is true. Like you can have innovation, you can have advancement,
progression. Yeah, sure.
you can have progression, and at the same time have setbacks and steps backwards in other areas. Like, for example, we've talked about it. The foot planning is piss poor right now compared to what it was on games like 2K16 and 2K17, and that dramatically hurts the gameplay in the new NBA 2K games. There's more suction now. There's more canned animations due to all of the badges, all of that stuff, and more canned animations in general. Pro Play, while it's an advancement, it's also a negative to some people because it adds a little bit more of that canned variety to the gameplay, right? So, to his point, Madden 25, yes, like I stated, it is a fact that they added enhancements to the game, right? There are new features, there are new animations, there's new tackles, there's new different ways you can throw, there's all of this stuff, there's new features to Ultimate Team, all of the blah, blah, blah. But if there were setbacks that he noticed from games that he liked in the past, if there were, gameplay deficiencies that weren't as rampant or that weren't as noticeable, in past Maddens, and now they're like front and center for him. Or if he thinks that the gameplay, like you stated, overall, regardless of enhancements, setbacks, all this stuff, just overall that it's become stale, then I understand where he's coming from.
Definitely. And again, EA does have that reputation. They have had some very rough basketball releases over the years. So if trust has been eroded in them, which it has been in our community since they stopped releasing NBA Live on PC, that was a big deal for people, naturally. When they stopped releasing on PC, that broke the trust and loyalty for a lot of long-time NBA Live gamers, to say nothing of the problems with Live 07 and Live 08 on PC, and of course Xbox 360, PS3, the 7th generation consoles. So once again, I do get the skepticism, and thank you to Jared and Carlos for your very thoughtful responses to that question. Definitely see where you're coming from. And finally, Mark says, go EA Sports. So there is definitely excitement there. And one final note I want to point out here, Derek, when they had that hashtag, it's in the game, can we finally settle the debate that they're saying it's in the game, not EA Sports, it's to the game?
I don't understand how people hear anything other than it's in the game.
Right? It's a slogan.
YouTube
if it's in the game, it's in the game.
On the NLSC channel where you shared the EA Sports, it's in the game, that splash screen and that statement, that happened at the beginning of the EA Sports games. There's so many comments of people thinking that they said EA Sports to the game, and then EA Sports something else and all that stuff. It's like, it's pretty obvious that it's EA Sports in the game. I don't understand how people hear it any different. But I do want to say thank you to the community for all your responses to this week's mailbag. There were a lot of them. There was a lot of thought put into them. I love the fact that our listeners are, they want the games to improve, and they're telling the developers this is what we want to see, right? And that's the best feedback. It's not like EA go F yourself, or 2K go F yourself, right? It's not people getting on there and giving one word responses that are not helpful or super negative. People are putting thought into these responses, and I love to see it.
Love the passion, love the enthusiasm for basketball gaming. Great suggestions, as you said. As toxic as social media can be sometimes, I think the basketball gaming community has some great people in it, very knowledgeable people in it, who can articulate what they want out of the virtual hardwood. So yeah, thank you very much indeed for all of your responses. And Derek, we will obviously be keeping track of any news as it comes in, talking about it on the podcast, posting it on the site, talking about it in the forum and the Discord. Hopefully it's good news. Hopefully all this good stuff is indeed in the game. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, thank you for tuning in, and please join us again next week and every week on the NLSC, nb-live.com, our YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on social media. That's where you can get in touch with us. And of course, stay up to date with all of our content. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on YouTube, D43, and on the NLSC, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum, and Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. The NLSC is on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep a look to the NLSC itself, nb-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.